Sarah worked at one of the most expensive restaurants in the city. It was called Royal Bites. The place was always filled with rich people, businessmen, celebrities, and politicians. Everyone who worked there wore neat uniforms and big smiles. The floors were shiny, the lights were bright, and the plates were always spotless. But Sarah didn't care much about the beauty of the place. She only cared about the little salary she received every month. That money helped her pay for the one-room apartment she stayed in and bought her food for the week. She had no family. Her parents died in a fire when she was 10 years old, and she grew up in an orphanage. Life taught her to be strong even when things were hard. Still, Sarah never allowed pain to steal her kindness. Even when she had nothing, she shared the little she had. It was a very hot afternoon when it all happened. Sarah stood behind the counter, cleaning glass cups and arranging cutlery. The restaurant was quiet. There were no customers at that moment. Her boss, Mr. Harris, sat at his desk in the manager's office. Suddenly, the glass door opened and a man stepped in. Sarah looked up and gasped. The man looked dirty. His shirt was torn in 3 places. His jeans were old and faded. His face was covered with dust, and his hair was uncombed. He had no shoes on, just dusty feet and cracked heels. He walked slowly, as if every step was heavy. Sarah's heart dropped. She had seen many poor people in her life. But this man looked different. He didn't beg or shout. He didn't even look around. He just stood near the entrance, weak, tired, and silent. Mr. Harris saw him and stormed out from his office like a raging bull. "Get out of here. This is not a shelter," Mr. Harris shouted, his voice echoing across the restaurant's marble floors. But the man didn't move. He simply looked up with hollow eyes that made Sarah's stomach twist. "Did you hear me?" Mr. Harris shouted again, waving his hand. "Go before I call security." Still, no reaction. The man looked like he hadn't eaten in days. And that's when Sarah did something she knew she could get fired for, something that would change her life forever. Mr. Harris marched up to the homeless man like a furious storm. His expensive shoes clicked loudly on the shiny tiles. His face was red with anger. "This is Royal Bites, not a garbage dump," he yelled, pointing at the door. "Get out now before I throw you out myself." The homeless man didn't flinch. He stood still, eyes tired, lips pressed tightly. He looked like he was made of stone, dirty, broken stone. But he didn't move. He didn't speak. Sarah's heart raced. She could feel her chest tightening. Every eye in the restaurant was now on them. 2 waiters peeking from the kitchen, the cleaner frozen with a mop in hand. Mr. Harris hated scenes. He was all about image. His veins bulged at the side of his neck. He hated when anything or anyone disturbed the perfection of Royal Bites. "I said out," Mr. Harris yelled again, this time stepping forward like he was going to push the man. Sarah stepped in between them. "Sir," she said quietly, "please. He's not causing any trouble. He's just standing there." Mr. Harris blinked in shock. "Excuse me," he said, his voice lowering but full of warning. "You're defending him?" Sarah swallowed hard. She didn't know what came over her. But something about the homeless man's silence, his stillness, it touched something deep inside her. Maybe because she had been there too. Not on the streets, but close. She knew the look of someone who had given up. "He's not hurting anyone," she repeated. "Maybe he's just hungry." Mr. Harris's eyes narrowed. "This is not a soup kitchen, Sarah. This is a high-end restaurant. People pay 500 naira just to look at the menu." Sarah said nothing. "Fine," Mr. Harris growled, throwing his hands up. "If you care so much, you deal with him. But don't you dare let him inside. If any customer sees him here, you're gone. Fired. No second chances." Then he turned and stormed back into his glass office, slamming the door. Sarah turned to the man. He hadn't moved. His eyes were still distant, as if his body was present but his mind had long left. She hesitated for a moment, then whispered, "Wait here," and slipped through the kitchen door. Inside, the kitchen staff were busy preparing food for the evening rush. Chef Olu was shouting at someone about burnt prawns. Sarah quietly moved to the shelf where leftover bread was kept, the kind they were going to throw out. She wrapped 2 pieces in a napkin and hid a few fries in between. "Sarah, what are you doing?" asked one of the kitchen boys. "Nothing," she said quickly. "Just cleaning." She stepped out and walked around the back, exiting through the staff door. She found the man sitting on the pavement near the dumpster. He hadn't even asked for food. Still silent. Still motionless. She knelt beside him. "Here," she said, offering the small bundle of food. He looked at her, just briefly, then took it. Slowly, carefully, like it was treasure. Sarah sat beside him for a moment, watching as he ate one piece of bread and then paused, like he hadn't tasted real food in years. "Do you have a name?" she asked softly. The man didn't answer. She gave a small smile. "I'm Sarah." Still, he said nothing. She stood up and dusted off her knees. "Come back tomorrow, same time," she whispered. "I'll try again." Then she returned to the restaurant, hoping Mr. Harris wouldn't ask too many questions. The next day, just as the clock hit 3 p.m., the quiet hour before the evening rush, Sarah peeked through the blinds of the back kitchen window. And there he was, sitting in the same spot, same shirt, same tired eyes. Sarah felt her throat tighten. She had brought a small pack of rice wrapped in foil. It wasn't much, but it was warm. She slipped out quietly through the side door and handed it to him again. He took it silently, but this time, he looked up at her longer. His lips parted slightly, like he wanted to say something, but he just nodded. It became a routine. Every afternoon for the next week, Sarah would save leftovers, bread, rice, soup, anything she could sneak out, and meet him at the back. He never asked questions, never spoke, but he started looking stronger, sitting straighter. Sometimes, she sat with him, told him stories about the customers who came into Royal Bites. The woman who brought her dog and demanded bottled water for it. The minister who flirted with every waitress. The celebrity who pretended not to know the price of anything. And even though he didn't laugh, Sarah could see the faintest hint of a smile in his eyes. She began to look forward to it more than anything. The moment when, for a few minutes, she wasn't just a waitress with a dead-end job. She was a person doing something that mattered. But one day, as she returned to the restaurant after feeding him, Mr. Harris was standing at the back door, arms crossed, eyes cold. "Do you think I'm stupid, Sarah?" Her heart dropped. Sarah froze. Mr. Harris's sharp eyes scanned her hands, her apron, then the empty foil plate in the bin beside the door. "I saw you," he said flatly. "3 times this week. Taking food out of my kitchen. Feeding that stray dog behind the restaurant." Sarah swallowed hard. "He's not a dog." "Oh." Mr. Harris stepped closer, lowering his voice like a threat. "Then what is he, Sarah? A prince in disguise? A long-lost brother? Or maybe a secret billionaire?" She said nothing. Her hands trembled. "I should fire you right now," he continued. "But you're useful. You clean well, you don't talk back to customers, and you come in early." Sarah's heart thudded in her chest. Was he going to give her another warning? But Mr. Harris's voice turned cold again. "If I see you near that man again, you're gone. No pay, no reference letter. You'll be begging like him." Sarah nodded quietly. He turned around. "And one more thing," he added. "I've installed a camera at the back, so don't think I won't know." Sarah stood there long after he left, staring at the bin, her throat dry. She returned to work, but her thoughts were clouded with worry. That man, Jay, she now guessed, had started eating again. His shoulders no longer slouched completely. His skin, though still pale, had color returning. What would happen if she suddenly stopped helping him? That evening, after her shift, she walked home in the dark. The city lights blinked around her. Cars honked. Lovers laughed on benches. Rich people walked into boutiques without checking price tags. She walked past them all, her shoes flat, her back aching, her thoughts loud. Then, suddenly, she turned into the narrow alley beside her street, and there he was. Jay. He was sitting under a dim street lamp, holding something in his hand. A brown paper bag. "Jay?" she whispered, surprised. He nodded and stood up slowly. He looked cleaner. Still poor, but better. She hadn't seen him outside the restaurant before. "I followed you," he said, his voice deep but calm. Sarah blinked. "Why?" He stretched out the brown paper bag. Inside were 2 bananas and a piece of bread. "For you," he said. She stared at the food, confused, then looked up at him. "Why would you give me this?" Jay paused. "You fed me when I had nothing. So now, I give you something, even if it's small." Sarah took the bag slowly, emotions swelling in her chest. "Thank you," she whispered. He gave a tiny smile, barely visible. "We can meet here now," he said. "Safer than the alley behind the restaurant. You could lose your job." She nodded. From that day, they changed their meeting spot. Every evening after work, Sarah would bring whatever she could hide in her bag, sandwich crusts, rice in plastic wrap, or fruit from the staff fruit bowl. And Jay, sometimes, brought her little things too. A poem he wrote on a paper napkin. A dry flower he found on the sidewalk. Once, even a chocolate bar, half melted but still sweet. They never asked each other too many questions. But the silence between them began to feel like something real, something comforting. But things were about to change. Because one evening, Jay finally spoke. Not just a word, but a full sentence. And what he said would begin to crack everything open. It started with a spoon. A silver spoon, Royal Bites logo engraved on the handle, went missing. Mr. Harris stormed into the kitchen, eyes wild, slamming the silverware drawer shut. "Who took it?" he barked. "You think this place is a charity? You think you can steal and I won't notice?" Everyone froze. Sarah kept washing dishes, hands shaking. She hadn't taken any spoon. "Was it you, Sarah?" he asked, voice sharp. She turned. "No, sir." "Then why does your bag look heavy today?" Sarah's eyes widened. Her heart raced. Inside her bag was a plastic box with leftover rice and some fish bones, meant for Jay. "It's my lunch box," she said quickly. "I didn't finish my lunch." Mr. Harris narrowed his eyes, suspicious. "I'm watching you," he muttered, then turned to yell at the others. Sarah's knees nearly gave out. She had to be more careful. Everything was getting riskier. That evening, she almost didn't go to the alley. Her hands were sweaty. Her mind was full of fear. But Jay was waiting. As always. He sat cross-legged on an old piece of foam, sipping water from a bottle he had refilled somewhere. He looked at her and smiled faintly. "You came." "Of course," Sarah replied, sitting beside him. "But it's getting dangerous." Jay nodded. "I know." They sat in silence for a while. The city buzzed behind them. Cars. Distant music. Voices. Then Jay finally spoke again, clearly this time. "I wasn't always like this," he said quietly. Sarah looked at him. "What do you mean?" He looked down at his dusty fingers. 3 years ago, I had a penthouse, a company, and people begging for my time. Then I vanished." Sarah's eyebrows rose. "You vanished." He nodded. "Not because I wanted to." She leaned closer. "Then what happened?" He looked at her, eyes full of sadness and something darker, fear. "They took everything." Sarah sat frozen beside Jay. The air around them felt heavier after his words. "They took everything." She wanted to ask who they were, but she didn't. Something about the way Jay's voice sounded, hollow and tired, told her it wasn't time yet. Instead, she said, "You can tell me when you're ready." Jay looked at her. For the first time, his eyes held more than just pain, they held trust. Then he asked, "What about you? You work in a golden place, but your soul doesn't belong there. Who are you, Sarah?" Sarah gave a weak smile. "There's not much to say." Jay was quiet, waiting. She sighed. "My parents died when I was 10. A fire. I remember the heat more than the flames. After that, the orphanage became home." Jay looked at her with silent understanding. "I grew up fast," she continued. "Learned how to make noodles for 20 kids with just one packet. Learned to share even when I had nothing." She laughed a little. "I used to think someone would come and say, 'You've got a rich uncle who left you a mansion.' But no, life doesn't work like that." Jay smiled faintly. "After the orphanage, I worked as a cleaner. Then as a supermarket cashier. Then I landed the job at Royal Bites." Jay tilted his head. "You sound like someone who should be bitter." "I should be," she admitted. "But I'm not. Maybe because I know how it feels to be invisible. I don't ever want to make someone else feel that way." There was silence again. Comfortable, warm silence. Then Jay said something strange. "I remember a girl like you," he murmured. "She used to work in my company's mailroom. Always smiling. Brought me coffee even when I didn't ask. She reminded me what kindness looked like." Sarah blinked. "Your company?" Jay nodded slowly. "I told you, I had one. Before they took it. Before everything fell apart." Sarah leaned forward. "Who are they, Jay?" But Jay just shook his head. "Not yet." He stood up, brushing dust from his trousers. "Soon." As he walked off into the night, Sarah sat there, heart pounding. She could feel it. This man, this stranger, wasn't who everyone thought he was. And slowly, piece by piece, he was revealing it. But what she didn't know was that someone else had seen them talking that night. Someone who worked at Royal Bites. And that someone was going to tell Mr. Harris everything. The next day at Royal Bites started like any other. Shiny floors. Loud laughter. Expensive perfume from rich guests who barely touched their food. But Sarah's mind was elsewhere. She couldn't stop thinking about Jay. About what he said. About the shadows in his words. She was clearing table 9 when Mr. Harris called her name, loudly. "Sarah, my office." Now, her heart sank. She walked in slowly, her hands tightening around her apron. Mr. Harris didn't ask her to sit. He picked up a remote from his desk and pointed at the wall behind him. A screen came on, security footage. A blurry black and white clip played. Sarah, handing something to Jay at the alley. Jay sitting, eating. Sarah laughing. Mr. Harris paused the video. Care to explain? Sarah was quiet. You think you're smart? Mr. Harris hissed. You think I wouldn't find out? One of the cleaners saw you two behind that alley last night. I told you once. You don't listen. I wasn't stealing food, Sarah said quickly. It was leftover. I took it with my own lunch. I don't care. Mr. Harris snapped. That man is a street rat. A disease waiting to happen. You're putting this business at risk. Sarah's hands were shaking. He's not what you think. Oh, really? Then who is he? Your secret lover? A lost cousin? Sarah didn't answer. Mr. Harris slammed his fist on the table. I should fire you right now. But then he paused, studying her carefully. Actually, no. I'll give you one last chance. But only if you agree to something. Sarah raised her head. Bring him here, Mr. Harris said with a twisted smile. Tonight. Through the back. I want to see him with my own eyes. What? You heard me. If you want to keep this job, bring your little homeless friend here at midnight. Let's see if he's really just some lost soul or something more. Sarah hesitated. She knew a trap when she heard one. But she also knew one thing for sure now. Mr. Harris wanted to know who Jay really was. And maybe a part of her did too. Sarah didn't sleep that night. She lay on her thin mattress in her tiny one-room apartment, eyes wide open, staring at the cracked ceiling. Her mind kept playing the conversation with Mr. Harris on a loop. Bring him here. Tonight. Midnight. It felt like a trap. She knew Mr. Harris. He didn't forgive. He humiliated. If he could embarrass Jay, or worse, throw him out like garbage in front of others, he would. But Sarah also couldn't lose her job. It was all she had. She got up around 10 p.m., changed into her plainest clothes, tied her hair back, and left with quiet footsteps. The city at night was a different place, half asleep, half wild. Taxi drivers smoked on corners. Neon lights flickered on empty streets. Rats crossed alleyways like ghosts. Jay was already waiting at their usual spot under the dim streetlight, sipping water from an old bottle. You came, he said softly. Sarah nodded. I need to ask you something strange. Jay looked at her carefully. I need you to come with me. To Royal Bites. Just for a few minutes. My boss, he wants to see you. Jay's eyes darkened. He stood up slowly. Why? He doesn't believe you're just a poor man, she admitted. And I think he's scared. Jay was silent for a long time. Then, finally, he said something that chilled her. Maybe he should be. Sarah blinked. What do you mean? Jay looked straight into her eyes. Because I know him. Her breath caught in her throat. You know Mr. Harris? Jay nodded. Not personally, but I've seen his face before. Many years ago. At a meeting where decisions were made. Where I was silenced. Sarah stared at him. Who are you, Jay? He took a deep breath. Let's go. It's time he remembers. They arrived at the back entrance of Royal Bites a few minutes before midnight. The alley was quiet. No delivery trucks. No workers. Just the soft hum of the city sleeping. Sarah knocked twice on the back door. It creaked open. Mr. Harris stood there in a robe, holding a cigar. Well, he said, eyes scanning Jay from head to toe. So this is him. Jay didn't speak. Mr. Harris smirked. You look like something that crawled out of a trash can. Sarah flinched. But Jay didn't even blink. He walked inside, his bare feet leaving faint prints on the tiled floor. Let's go to your office, Jay said calmly. Mr. Harris raised an eyebrow. Excuse me. You want answers? Jay replied. Let's go where we can talk. Just us three. Mr. Harris hesitated. Then, strangely, he nodded. They walked through the silent kitchen. Pots gleamed under soft lights. The restaurant was quiet and eerie, like a sleeping beast. Inside the office, Jay sat down without asking. Sarah remained standing, nervous. Mr. Harris leaned against his desk. All right then. Speak. Who the hell are you? Jay smiled. For the first time, it wasn't a soft or sad smile. It was controlled. Intentional. My name is Jaden Elias Monroe, he said. Mr. Harris's cigar fell from his lips. I was the CEO of Monroe Tech Finance International. The same company you worked for in 2017 as a junior accountant before you were fired for embezzling $300,000. Mr. Harris froze. Sarah gasped. Jay leaned forward. I remember you. You wore the same smug grin you wear now. Only difference is, back then, You were caught. And I signed your dismissal. Mr. Harris's face turned pale. Sarah's knees buckled slightly. Jay continued, but you weren't alone. There were others. Powerful men who didn't want me in the way. So they buried me, froze my accounts, doctored my name, even paid people to call me mentally unstable. They erased my life overnight. Sarah covered her mouth. Jay's voice lowered. I lost my penthouse, my company, my passport, my reputation. I became a ghost. Mr. Harris was sweating now. Why you're lying? Jay stood up slowly. Am I? He pulled a crumpled envelope from his coat. Inside were old photos, newspaper cuttings, and a laminated ID. He tossed it on the desk. Sarah leaned in. Her hands shook as she picked up the ID. Jaden Elias Monroe. The photo was him, clean-shaven, suited, smiling. She looked up at him. Why didn't you tell me? Jay looked at her gently. Because no one listens to a man who smells like garbage. Mr. Harris stared at the ID card as if it would catch fire in his hands. Jaden Elias Monroe. The name he had once seen in headlines, now standing in front of him barefoot and covered in city dust. Sarah could barely breathe. She held the ID tightly in her hand, her eyes moving between Jay and Mr. Harris. I thought you were dead, Mr. Harris whispered, stepping back. Jay didn't move. That's what they wanted. Mr. Harris backed into his chair, gripping the edges of his desk. This is insane. You shouldn't even be in this city. If people knew you were alive. Jay cut in sharply. If people knew, a lot of them would be in prison by now. Sarah was stunned. What happened to you, Jay? How does a man like you end up on the streets? Jay turned to her, his voice soft but heavy. They took everything. Not just the money. They used my assistant, my friend, to sign off forged documents. They claimed I was laundering funds through a shell company in Panama. The media ran with it. People believed it. He walked to the window and looked out at the dark city. They blocked my bank accounts, revoked my business licenses, and filed charges that were sealed, so I couldn't defend myself in court. I was declared a national threat without ever stepping into a courtroom. Sarah whispered, They erased your life. Jay nodded. I slept in my car for weeks. Then I sold the car for cash to survive. Then I had nothing. No ID. No bank access. Nothing. Just my name, and even that became a lie. Mr. Harris licked his lips. Why now? Why come back? Jay turned slowly, his eyes cold and deliberate. Because I've been collecting proof. For years. Quietly. Patiently. And now I'm almost done. Sarah's eyes widened. What kind of proof? Jay reached into his torn coat and pulled out a second envelope. This one thicker. He handed it to her. Inside were printed bank statements, screenshots of wire transfers, signed boardroom minutes, and photographs. One of them showed Mr. Harris shaking hands with a man in a black suit outside a law firm known for handling secret offshore accounts. Mr. Harris sprang to his feet. You can't use that. Jay stared at him. You're scared now. Mr. Harris stammered. Why, you have no idea how powerful these people are. You think this little waitress can protect you? Jay didn't respond immediately. He turned to Sarah instead. You gave me food when no one gave me a second look. I won't let them hurt you. Mr. Harris shouted. You'll destroy everything if you push this. They'll come for you again. Jay smiled. Let them. This time, I'm not alone. Sarah felt a chill. For the first time, she realized. Jay wasn't just trying to expose the truth. He was planning something. Something big. And somehow, she was now part of it. Sarah walked home in silence, her shoes clicking softly against the wet sidewalk. Jay walked beside her, quiet as well. When they reached her building, she turned to him. What now? She asked. Jay looked at her seriously. You don't have to be involved. This could get dangerous. Sarah shook her head. No. I want to help. Jay smiled faintly. Then I need a computer. A quiet place. And a few names. Sarah nodded. I have a friend. Works night shifts at a computer cafe. He owes me. They made a plan to meet the next evening. But before Jay left, Sarah asked one last thing. What if they find out where you are? Jay's face darkened. They already have. Sarah blinked. What? He stepped closer. Tonight wasn't about Mr. Harris. I needed to confirm he was still one of them. And? Jay nodded. He is. But he's not the worst. Sarah's voice trembled. Then who is? Jay whispered a name. One she had only ever seen on billboard ads and campaign posters. Senator Alfred Vane. Her heart skipped a beat. The Senator Vane? Jay's jaw tightened. He wasn't just involved in my takedown. He was the architect. Sarah suddenly realized. This wasn't just a story of corruption or betrayal. It was war. And Jay, the homeless man she fed behind a restaurant, was a fallen giant, rising again. The next night, the city buzzed with heat and humidity. But Sarah walked fast, her mind burning with questions. Her phone buzzed with a message from her friend, Malik. Back room's open. No cams. Come now. She reached the old internet cafe hidden between a pawn shop and a forgotten bakery. The neon sign above flickered, Cyberdive. It had once been a hotspot for gamers and students, but now mostly hosted shady businessmen and desperate lovers looking for privacy. Jay was already waiting by the gate. You trust this place? He asked. Sarah nodded. No one asks questions here. Inside, the air smelled like dust and warm wires. Malik greeted them with a nod and led them to the back. A small room with 2 old PCs, a mini fridge, and a broken fan spinning lazily. No cameras in this room, Malik said. I made sure. Jay handed him a small paper with instructions. Give me 45 minutes. Then delete every trace of our access. And if anyone asks, say we were never here. Malik's eyebrows raised. You into something serious? Jay looked at him. More than you know. Jay got to work. His fingers flew over the keyboard. Lines of code appeared on the screen. He opened encrypted folders, logged into hidden servers, and rerouted data through 5 different countries. Sarah sat beside him, watching in awe. You still remember how to do all this? She asked softly. Jay nodded without taking his eyes off the screen. This is who I was. Before I became a ghost. One by one, he pulled up documents, communication logs, confidential emails. Then he paused. His face hardened. What is it? Sarah asked. Jay tilted the screen slightly. There, in plain text, was an internal memo. Dated March 3, 2017, the day before Jay's company collapsed. Subject, Operation Smoke Curtain. Objective, eliminate Monroe Tech through controlled scandal. Approved by A.V. H. Lowell, G. Harris, ***. Sarah gasped. G. Harris. Mr. Harris. Jay nodded. It wasn't just vain. It was a full network of betrayal. Sarah read further. There was even a note about silencing key employees who might leak the truth, including a hit order on Jay's old assistant, Maribel. They wanted to kill her? Sarah whispered. Jay's voice was quiet. They succeeded. Sarah sat back, stunned. Why you? Why did they come after you so hard? Jay paused. Because I found out what Monroe Tech's competitors were doing. They were stealing pension funds through fake fintech apps, robbing millions of poor people. He turned to her. I was going to go public. That's when they buried me. Just then, Malik knocked lightly. Jay? Someone outside's asking for Sarah. Says she's her cousin. Sarah frowned. I don't have any cousins. Jay froze. It's a setup. They packed up immediately. Jay handed Malik a USB. Erase everything. Then disappear for a week. Malik didn't ask questions. He nodded and vanished. Jay and Sarah slipped out the back door into the alley. A black car stood across the street. 2 men in suits stood beside it, pretending to smoke. Jay pulled Sarah behind a dumpster. They're watching you now. Sarah's heart raced. What do we do? Jay pulled out a phone. We disappear. They ran for 2 blocks, turned a corner, ducked through a laundry shop, and into a crowded metro station. Jay handed Sarah a new SIM card. From now on, no phone calls. No texts. If you need me, leave a message at the old library's lost and found desk. Sarah was shaking, but she nodded. Where will we go? She asked. Jay's eyes narrowed. To someone who owes me. Someone still on the inside. The subway train clattered beneath the city like an underground heartbeat. Sarah and Jay sat side by side in the last coach, heads down, surrounded by tired workers and school kids. Jay kept his hood up. Sarah wore sunglasses even though it was nighttime. Neither of them spoke for the first 20 minutes. Then Jay finally said, We're going to cross district. It's outside the central loop. Mostly factories, scrapyards, and forgotten buildings. Sarah looked up. Who are we meeting? Jay leaned in, his voice low. A man named Victor. He used to work in city data archives. He handled back-end data requests, birth certificates, identity records, voter registrations. If there's anyone who can help rebuild my life digitally, it's him. Sarah was quiet. Do you trust him? Jay gave a sad smile. He saved my life once. He's the reason I wasn't arrested that first week. He deleted my travel logs before the police found me. The cross district was dimly lit, and smelled like oil and wet metal. Graffiti covered the buildings. Stray dogs barked in the distance. They walked past shuttered garages and broken vending machines until they reached a rust-colored door behind an old mechanic's shop. Jay knocked twice, then 3 times, then once. A small square opened in the door. A single eye appeared. "Monroe," the voice said. Jay smiled, still breathing. The door opened. Victor stood there, tall, broad, with a gray hoodie and a grease-stained apron. His beard was rough, but his eyes were kind. He pulled Jay into a tight hug. "They said you were dead, man." Jay patted his back. "They always say that. Meet Sarah." Victor gave her a firm nod. "Anyone he brings here is family." Inside, Victor's place looked like a junkyard mated with a hacker's paradise. Screens lit up the room, some showing traffic cams, others filled with code. There were shelves of hard drives, old passports, wires, tools, and under the floorboards, Sarah noticed something that looked like a rifle case. Jay went straight to business. "I need you to dig into Senator Alfred Vane." Victor blinked. "That's not a small request." Jay nodded. "He's the one who ruined me, and he's still doing it to others." Victor exhaled slowly, then walked to his desk and pulled up a folder titled The Archive. "You're not the first person he's buried," Victor said. "He owns 7 real estate companies under different names. None of them pay taxes. He launders money through donation platforms that don't exist. The scary part? 3 mayors, 2 judges, and at least 1 governor are tied to him." Sarah was stunned. "How is that even possible?" Victor turned to her. "Because nobody questions the man who throws charity galas for orphanages while hiding offshore accounts in the Caribbean." Jay looked at Victor. "Can you help me resurface?" "Legally." Victor smiled. "I've already started. I have your birth record. And guess what? One of your offshore properties in Bali was never touched. They missed it. Title is still in your name." Jay's jaw dropped. "You're kidding." Victor shook his head. "It's under a foreign trust. They missed it because it was purchased in your grandfather's name. You're still rich, Jay?" They just buried the truth. But then Victor's face darkened. "I need to tell you something else. I found a death certificate filed in your name." Jay frowned. "I know. They faked it." "No," Victor said slowly. "It was updated 2 weeks ago by someone in the city's active citizen database." Sarah's heart stopped. "Wait, what does that mean?" she asked. Victor answered. "It means someone still wants Jay officially dead." Jay stood frozen, staring at the computer screen as Victor highlighted the digital death certificate. There it was, his name, full and legal, followed by status, deceased. Sarah leaned closer, whispering, "But you're right here. You're alive." Victor's voice was grim. This update wasn't from the old data logs. Someone with high clearance logged into the National Records Network 2 weeks ago and reconfirmed Jay Monroe as legally deceased. Jay rubbed his temples. "Why now? After all these years?" Victor typed quickly, pulling up more records. "Because your old offshore property just got flagged for automatic auction. Someone knows you're close to reclaiming it." Sarah frowned. "So they're trying to erase you again?" Victor nodded. "Only this time, completely. If the system believes you're dead, any action you take, like accessing money or proving ownership, will be flagged as fraud." Jay slammed his fist on the table. "They're closing in." Victor gave him a look. "They've already closed in. You only have days, maybe hours, before everything collapses again." Sarah sat back, the weight of it all pressing on her. This man who once sat barefoot in front of her restaurant, dirty and silent, was now running from a full-blown conspiracy, hunted by the elite, erased from the system. And somehow, she was right in the middle of it. "You're risking your life for me," Jay said softly. Sarah met his eyes. "You saved mine first, when you gave me a reason to look beyond what I could see." Victor brought out a drawer filled with old ID templates, fingerprints kits, forged passports, and something that looked like a voice modulator. "I can get you into the civic building where the citizen registry is stored," he said. "But it's going to be a one-shot thing. The second you touch that system, alarms will go off." Jay nodded. "Then we'll have to move fast." Victor looked between them. "And if something goes wrong?" Jay looked at Sarah, then back at Victor. "Then you make sure she disappears." "Completely." Sarah shook her head. "No. We do this together." That night, Victor set them up in a small apartment above an abandoned pawn shop 2 streets away. The windows were boarded. The fridge barely worked. But it was safe, for now. They had 2 days before the auction of the Bali property. 2 days before Jay's final trace of existence vanished forever. Sarah sat beside Jay on the floor, eating instant noodles. She studied him in the dim light. "Why didn't you tell anyone the truth all these years?" she asked. Jay stared at the ceiling. "Because I didn't know who to trust. And I didn't want to drag anyone else into it." Sarah smiled faintly. "Too late for that." Jay looked at her. "You could walk away, Sarah? Right now? You don't owe me anything." She shook her head. "Maybe not. But the world owes you a chance to be heard. And I want to help give it back." For the first time in years, Jay let himself believe something might still be possible. But just as the silence settled, a red dot appeared on the wall across from them. Tiny, but moving. Jay grabbed Sarah and yanked her to the ground just as the window shattered. Gunshot. Glass exploded everywhere. Someone had found them. The sound of the bullet echoed through the pawnshop apartment like a bomb. Sarah's ears rang as Jay pressed her close to the ground. Glass rained around them. Another shot ripped through the wooden wall, missing them by inches. "Move!" Jay shouted. He pulled her by the arm and crawled toward the back of the apartment. Another shot smashed a lamp. Sparks flew. Behind a loose wall panel, Jay yanked open a trapdoor Victor had pointed out earlier. "Through here." Sarah didn't hesitate. She slid down first, landing in a narrow, dark corridor below the building. Jay followed and sealed the trapdoor shut just as 2 more bullets hammered the floor above them. They ran through the tunnel, which smelled of sewage and rust. The path twisted and dipped, water trickling at their feet. Jay led with a small flashlight, dodging rats and low-hanging pipes. Sarah gasped for breath. "Who are these people, Jay? How are they still finding us?" Jay's voice was tight. "They must have tracked Victor. I didn't think they'd move this fast." Ahead, light spilled from a metal grate. Jay climbed up, twisted the old lock, and shoved the grate open. They emerged into an alley filled with trash bins and dripping water pipes. But they weren't safe yet. A black SUV rolled down the street behind them. "Run!" They sprinted across a busy avenue, narrowly dodging motorbikes and cars. Horns blared. People shouted. But no one stopped to help. Jay pulled Sarah into a crowded metro station entrance. Down the stairs, through the ticket barriers, and into a departing train just as the doors closed. He bent over, panting, sweat rolling down his face. Sarah slumped into a seat, her hand bleeding slightly from where glass had cut her arm. Jay looked at her and winced. "You're hurt." "I'm fine," she said, breathless. "We made it out. That's what matters." 30 minutes later, they reached an old public library on the edge of the city. The building was mostly abandoned, just a few dusty bookshelves and a sleepy old man at the counter. No one cared who walked in or out. Jay led Sarah to the basement level, where Victor had another safe house. This one hidden behind a fake storage door in the records room. Inside, the walls were lined with maps, a working computer, a few weapons, and a small bed. They collapsed into silence. Sarah finally spoke. "We can't keep running forever." Jay nodded. "We won't. We hit back. Tomorrow." Sarah looked at him. "How?" Jay opened a drawer and pulled out a thick envelope. Inside were old IDs, access cards, and a black flash drive. "This is the last thing my assistant Maribel gave me before she died," he said. "She said it was my kill switch. I never opened it." He held it in his palm like it was made of fire. Sarah stared at it. "What's on it?" Jay answered quietly. Everything they didn't want the world to see. But just as he plugged it into the computer, a warning popped up. "Warning, device encrypted. 3 attempts only. Incorrect entries will trigger data wipe." Jay blinked. "Damn, I need to remember the password." Sarah put a hand on his arm. "Take your time. Don't guess." Jay leaned back, eyes closed. He whispered, "She used to say something. Every time we almost gave up." Sarah waited. Jay opened his eyes and typed, "Truth never dies." The flash drive clicked. Unlocked. A folder popped open. "Confidential, Project Harpocrates." Jay and Sarah stared at the screen, stunned. He clicked it. Suddenly, hundreds of files opened. Emails, ledgers, wire transfers, phone call logs. Names of politicians. Secret payments. Surveillance operations. Even assassination orders. Coded, but traceable. Sarah covered her mouth. This could destroy them." Jay nodded. "We don't run anymore. We go public." Sarah looked at him. "And if they try to stop us?" Jay's eyes hardened. "Then they'll finally know I'm still breathing." The files on the screen shimmered like silent ghosts from the past. each one carrying secrets too dangerous to be left in the dark. Jay's hands trembled slightly as he scrolled through them. Sarah stood beside him, barely breathing. Names, so many names. Senators, judges, business tycoons, and even police commissioners. In one folder titled Project Harpocrates, there was a document marked Royal Bites, Asset Observation Logs. Sarah's eyes widened. That's the name of the restaurant where I work. Jay clicked the file open. Inside were surveillance notes, camera angles, employee names. Sarah's name was there. Sarah Adu, status, harmless, monitored. Her voice cracked. They've been watching me. Jay's eyes darkened. They must have marked you the moment you started feeding me. You weren't just being kind to a homeless man. You were interfering with their silence. Jay backed away from the computer. We need to make this public, but smart. If we just upload it, they'll shut it down. Label it fake. Erase it in seconds. Sarah sat down, trying to stay calm. Then how? Jay paced. We send it to 3 people. Trusted, well-known whistleblowers. People outside the city system. One in another country. One in the media. And one to a man I used to call a friend. Victor's voice came through the radio system on the desk. He'd set up a secure channel between the safe houses. Jay? You alive? Jay grabbed the mic, barely. They found us. I know. I lost them on the south side. The SUV was registered to a shell company in Senator Vane's portfolio. I told you, he's pulling the strings. Jay nodded. We have the kill switch, Vic. The flash drive unlocked. It's all here. Everything. Then we don't wait. Get to the central broadcast tower by morning. I'll meet you there. By the time the sun began to rise, the sky was bruised purple. Sarah hadn't slept, but neither had Jay. They packed everything. Laptops, flash drives, paper files, burner phones. Jay also found an old photograph in the safe house. A photo of himself with 3 men. One of them was Vane, laughing with a wine glass in hand. He tucked it into his coat. Let the world see who he really is. The streets were still quiet as they snuck out through the library's back door. But they didn't make it far. A black sedan turned the corner, fast. It screeched to a stop. 3 men jumped out. Not police. Not thugs. Private agents. Government grade. Jay shouted, "Run!" Sarah and Jay dashed through the side streets of the old textile market. People were just setting up their stalls. A loud crash behind them. A stall of fruits exploded as one agent tackled it. Jay and Sarah ducked into an alley and burst through a bakery's back door, flying past shocked workers, out the front, and back into the chaos of the morning city. They finally reached the foot of the broadcast tower, a giant spire that stood above the city, once used for radio, now mostly silent. Victor was already waiting, leaning against a wall, hoodie up. I've got 20 minutes of blackout time, he said. That's all I could hack. We plug in, upload everything, and hope someone out there is listening. Jay handed him the flash drive. Sarah turned to Jay. You ready? Jay took a deep breath. I was born ready. I just forgot for a while. They climbed 12 floors to the control room. Victor started the upload. And for the first time, the kill switch began to burn into the system. Screens lit up. Newsrooms received anonymous tips. An international journalist in Paris pinged an encrypted file marked City of Smoke. Proof of political rot. Jay turned to Sarah. This is how it begins. But then, the lights flickered. The upload froze at 74%. Victor cursed. They've found the tower. Gunfire rang out below. Jay grabbed Sarah's hand. We finish what we started. No matter what. The gunfire echoed up the hollow steel frame of the old broadcast tower. Victor slammed the keyboard. Come on, just a little more. Jay ducked near the window, peering down at the parking lot. Black-clad agents were already moving in, 6 of them, automatic weapons in hand. A black van parked across the street. No sirens. No police. This wasn't law enforcement. This was something darker. Silent. Surgical. We have less than 2 minutes. Victor yelled. They've jammed part of the signal. Sarah's voice was calm, but urgent. What if they shut us down before it finishes? Jay pulled a cable from his coat. Then we take the upload with us. Backup drive. He plugged it into the laptop, starting a local copy while the upload inched forward. 78%. 79%. Victor's fingers flew across the keyboard. They've scrambled 3 nodes already. If they corrupt the stream. A bullet shattered the outer window. Everyone hit the ground. Jay crawled to the window, fired a shot back with a small pistol from the safe house. It was enough to slow them down. Just stall them, Vic. We don't need 100%. We just need enough to make it matter. Victor grinned through the tension. You're still crazy. 83%. Another explosion, this time at the base of the tower. Sarah covered her ears. They're trying to bring the whole thing down. Jay looked at Victor. Time to split. Victor nodded. Take the external drive. I'll keep the stream live. Let them come for me. Jay's eyes flared. No. You come with us. Victor grabbed Jay's hand. This is my redemption, brother. You finish the story. I'll hold the door. Sarah was shaking her head. There must be another way. Another explosion. The floor trembled. Jay hesitated, heart torn. Then, reluctantly, he yanked the drive, stuffed it into his jacket, and grabbed Sarah by the wrist. Let's go. They tore through the emergency stairwell, descending 4 floors before the next blast knocked the lights out. Sparks danced across the ceiling. Smoke rose from the lower floors. They reached a sealed exit. A maintenance door Jay remembered from when he first designed the tower years ago. He broke the lock with a wrench Victor gave him earlier, and they slipped out into a utility tunnel that led beneath the street. As they fled, the ground shook again. Up above, the transmission tower began to flicker, signals cutting in and out. But the message had already started to spread. On the city's underground news forums, a leak appeared. Anonymous. Whistleblower drops evidence of massive political conspiracy involving Royal Bites, Senator Vane, and state security. Screenshots of files appeared on Reddit, Twitter, Telegram. The public was seeing the rot, and for the first time, they believed it. Jay and Sarah emerged on the other side of the street, faces covered in soot, hearts pounding. Sirens wailed now. Too late, of course. The real authorities had been conveniently absent the entire time. Sarah leaned against a wall. Do you think Victor made it? Jay looked back toward the tower, smoke billowing from the top. I don't know. He reached into his jacket and held the external drive tightly. But I know we're not done. Across the city, chaos stirred. Politicians began scrambling. Phones were destroyed. Flights were booked under fake names. Jay and Sarah melted into the shadows of the old city district, no longer running aimlessly, but moving with purpose. That night, in a dim internet cafe run by an old friend of Victor's, Sarah hit send again. This time, the files went global, encrypted mirrors on sites around the world. Jay leaned over her shoulder and whispered, "This is the beginning of the end, for them." The city didn't sleep that night. Screens in cafes, hotel lobbies, and even metro stations began flashing images from the leak. Blurry photos, secret memos, and redacted contracts linking powerful figures to illegal operations, human tracking, surveillance of innocent civilians, misuse of state funds, and something more chilling, a line that read, "Elimination List, Category A." And one name stood out. Sarah Adu. Her hand froze as she read it on the cracked screen inside the internet cafe. Jay slowly reached over and scrolled through the list. Dozens of names. Whistleblowers. Ex-journalists. Homeless people. Former agents. Sarah whispered, "Why me?" Jay sat beside her. "Because you became unpredictable. Kindness like yours, it ruins their control." Behind them, the cafe owner, a gruff older man named Malik, lit a cigarette and exhaled slowly. "You two just painted red targets on your foreheads. The leak's global now, but you've only scratched the surface." Jay nodded. "Which is why we need to go deeper." Meanwhile, in the heart of the city, chaos erupted in places once untouchable. At Senator Vane's mansion, dozens of journalists stood at the gates, shouting questions. He had not been seen since the night before. His social media had gone dark. His private jet had vanished from the radar. The public smelled blood. But even more frightening, other powerful names were on the list. The governor, a media mogul, the police commissioner, even Mr. Harris, the manager of Royal Bites. And while some denied, others went into hiding. One man, however, did not deny anything. That man was Mr. Harris. In a surprise video that aired early the next morning, he appeared in a dark suit, looking shaken but composed. The press conference was short. "I confirmed that I was aware of some operations mentioned in the leak. I will cooperate with authorities. I was under orders. I didn't have a choice." Jay and Sarah stared at the screen in disbelief. Sarah's voice was low. "He threw everyone else under the bus." Jay gritted his teeth. "That's because he knows it's collapsing. He's trying to save himself. Malik turned off the screen. The masks are falling, kids. But the devils underneath aren't gone yet. That evening, Jay received a message on his burner phone. No name. No number. Just 6 chilling words. We know where she lives now. His heart stopped. Sarah saw the look on his face. What happened? He looked her straight in the eyes. We need to disappear. Tonight. They left everything behind, again. Malik gave them new clothes, fake IDs, and access to an old apartment he used during the uprising 10 years ago. It was small, dusty, and forgotten, but safe for now. In that apartment, Jay opened a final folder he hadn't shared with Sarah yet. Inside were coordinates. A map of abandoned warehouses on the city's southern edge. A note attached. Origin site, subject 0. Royal Bites. Sarah leaned in, reading over his shoulder. What does it mean? Jay's expression turned cold. It means the restaurant wasn't just a front. It was where this all began. The rain poured hard that night as Jay and Sarah stood across from the crumbling warehouse on the city's southern edge. A faded sign hung loosely from the rusted gate. RB Logistics. Authorized personnel only. Sarah whispered, RB as in Royal Bites. Jay nodded. They disguised this place as a supply center. But according to the files we leaked, this is where they processed the real product. She shivered. What product? He looked her dead in the eye. People. They slipped inside, dodging cameras Jay jammed using an old signal disruptor. The inside was cavernous. Echoes bounced off the concrete walls. Old conveyor belts sat frozen, covered in dust. Office doors were nailed shut, windows broken. But one door stood out. It was new. Metal. Reinforced. Fingerprint pad beside it. Jay took out a small black device and connected it to the pad. Sarah watched in silence, her heart racing. You've done this before? Jay smirked faintly. Let's just say, my past wasn't all boardrooms and press conferences. The lock clicked. They stepped inside. What they found was a room unlike anything they'd seen before. Clean. Cold. Lit by a blue glow. Servers lined the walls. Each one labeled with names, dates, codes. On a table in the middle was a chair. Leather straps on the arms and legs. A screen beside it showed a name. Subject number 001. Harris, Victoria. Sarah's hands shook. Victoria? As in, Mr. Harris's daughter? Jay scanned the files. Subject Victoria Harris showed high neural sensitivity. Project Horizon began here. Sarah's voice cracked. She was a child? Jay read on. Her case confirmed viability of memory alteration via suggestion compounds. Loss of original personality confirmed at age 12. Sarah stepped back. They erased her. Jay scrolled further. Subjects delivered through Royal Bites culinary staff into observation environments. Waitresses report daily logs. Only select agents aware. Sarah blinked. Waitresses, like me? Jay's face darkened. You were being used. All the waitresses were. They placed the altered subjects in your care to see if their behaviors could blend into normal settings. She whispered, that's why the rich came. Not for food, but for control. Suddenly, Jay's laptop beeped. Motion detected. Someone else had entered the warehouse. Jay grabbed Sarah. We have to go now. They rushed out the back, sprinting through the rain-soaked alley as footsteps echoed behind them. Flashlights flickered through the darkness. Sarah looked over her shoulder and gasped. One of the pursuers wore a Royal Bites apron, like hers. But his face, it was the same man from that first day. The one who came in dirty. Silent. Cracked heels. But now he wasn't dirty. He was clean. Pale. Eyes empty. Sarah froze. He's not homeless. Jay pulled her arm. He's one of them. They barely escaped, running through the sewers under the city. Back in the safe house, Sarah collapsed on the floor, overwhelmed. Jay paced. They've built an entire web of synthetic behavior. Memory rewrites. Identity wipes. And you were supposed to break. She looked up, eyes filled with tears. But I didn't. Jay crouched beside her. No. You fed him. You saw him as human. And that. He pointed to her heart. That ruined their whole experiment. Somewhere, in a dark office lit by dozens of screens, a group of silent figures watched them. One turned and said, she is not like the others. We underestimated her. Another replied, voice robotic. Then she must be terminated. They called themselves the Table. 12 seats. 12 shadows. Each one connected to a different sector of the city. Media, food, tech, defense, banking, science, religion, housing, transportation, law, education, and energy. Each shadow represented a hand on the neck of the people. And at the head of that table sat a woman no one had seen publicly in over 15 years. Madame Elora Vane, mother of Senator Vane, the real architect of Royal Bites. She watched Jay and Sarah on the screen from a hidden control room beneath the city's financial district. Not live footage, live data. Heart rates, body temperature, eye dilation, brainwave readings. Sarah had been tagged years ago, and she didn't know it. She has empathy, Madame Vane said coldly. A trait we thought extinct. An agent in a suit stepped forward. She's beginning to expose the operation. Madame Vane turned, her pale hand gliding across the marble table. Then remove her. But keep Jay alive. He knows how to build. Meanwhile, Jay had been running predictive scenarios on the laptop. Everything pointed to one conclusion. The real network was still hidden. This whole leak, the files, the servers. It was just a distraction, Jay muttered. They let us see that warehouse because they knew it would shake us. But the real data, the root of the experiments, it's deeper. Sarah sat on the mattress, knees drawn to her chest. I used to think I was just a poor waitress, Jay. Nothing more. Just trying to survive. Jay looked at her. You're not nothing. You're the glitch they couldn't predict. The human variable. He pulled up the map of the city again. There's one place left that's blacked out. No records. No power grid. Not even on satellite. He pointed to an island just off the coast. The Cauldron. Sarah frowned. I've heard that name. Old stories, people said it was cursed. Jay gave a grim smile. More like buried. The last firewall. If we're right, that island holds everything. Why they erased memories. Why they fed the rich, altered subjects. And who's really running this city. They had no money, no backup, no safe place. But they had each other. Jay placed the external drive back in Sarah's hands. If anything happens to me, you finish this. Sarah nodded. No, we finish this. The next day, they boarded a rusted delivery boat under false names, hidden under tarps and old boxes. The captain didn't ask questions, just accepted the cash and told them, you two want to go to the Cauldron? People go there, they don't come back. Jay tightened his grip on Sarah's hand. We're not people. The boat cut through the dark water, toward the mist that never lifted from the island's shores. And far behind them, in the city, Mr. Harris sat in a locked interrogation room, trembling. He whispered into the void. You don't understand. Sarah was never meant to survive the first phase. If she remembers, if she finds what they buried. He broke down, weeping. She'll tear it all down. On the island, as the boat neared the rocky dock, Jay looked at the rusted gates in the distance. Fences, towers, cameras, motion sensors. This wasn't abandoned. This was active. He turned to Sarah. You ready? Sarah stared at the mist. Her voice was calm. I'm not afraid of the truth anymore. Jay handed her a radio. Then let's find it. The boat pulled away in silence, disappearing into the fog, leaving Sarah and Jay alone on the blackened dock. The sea hissed against jagged rocks. A rusted sign above the entry gate read, Property of the Department of Urban Sanitation. No entry. But there was nothing sanitary about this place. Tall fences wrapped the island like barbed hands. Beyond them stood massive, weather-worn buildings that looked like old factories, but they buzzed with new life. Security drones hovered, silent and watching. No birds, no wind, no nature, only silence and surveillance. Sarah clutched the radio Jay had given her. Her breath formed small clouds in the air. Why would they need all this security for a sanitation facility? Jay replied without turning. Because it's not for trash. It's for the forgotten. They cut through a gap in the fence, one Jay had read about in an old blueprint. Inside, the air changed. Sterile. Heavy. Every corner had a camera. But strangely, no one came. As they moved deeper, they found the first signs. Metal stretchers. Abandoned labs. 4 tubes with labels. Neuroinhibitor, subject 019. Pre-purge status, unstable. Memory wipe, failed. Sarah stared at the chart. These were patients? Jay corrected her, voice cold. Test subjects. Sarah's voice broke. Like me, they entered an old control room where blinking lights still danced across dead monitors. Jay connected his device to the mainframe. He tapped furiously, pulling files, each one more disturbing than the last. Blueprints of human minds. Emotional control indexes. Reconditioning schedules. But then, he found a list. A complete subject database. And there it was. Subject 000. Name, Sarah Adu. Status, imprint rejected. Emotional corruption present. Termination recommended. Jay whispered. They tried to break you. You refused. Sarah stared, wide-eyed. But why? Why me? I was just a girl in an orphanage. Jay pulled up the next page. Origin, Legacy Protocol. Sarah Adu was born to Victoria Adu, former top researcher for Project Horizon, presumed dead in fire. Genetic compatibility matched to first-generation architecture. Sarah stepped back. My mother? Jay stared at her. She helped create this, and you were the insurance. A living backup. Before they could react, sirens blared. Doors slammed shut. A voice echoed through the hallway. Subject 0 has returned to source. Commence final acquisition. Jay grabbed her hand. They know we're here. Lights went dark. And then came the humming. A soft, eerie hum, followed by dozens of footsteps. From the shadows emerged figures, dressed in Royal Bites uniforms, eyes empty, faces familiar. They weren't staff. They were subjects. Brainwashed. Controlled. And now hunting them. Jay whispered, run. They darted down metal corridors, dodging hands that reached from every direction. The subjects weren't fast, but they moved in perfect sync, like puppets dancing to an invisible string. Sarah kicked a door open, revealing a deep shaft. At the bottom, light. Jay glanced down. It's the core. Sarah didn't hesitate. She jumped. They landed in a wide underground hall filled with old computers and power cores. In the center, a strange chair surrounded by projectors and cables. It was the original imprint chamber. Sarah approached, heart pounding. This is where it all began. Jay flipped through the main terminal. There's a failsafe. Your mother built it. A kill code hidden inside the chair's last transmission. If you sit, it might unlock her final message. Sarah looked at him. And what happens after? Jay hesitated. I don't know. You might remember everything, or lose everything. Upstairs, the subjects closed in. Dozens of them. One raised a finger to his ear. Subject has entered core room. Prepare containment. Madame Vane watched the live feed from the city. Do not let her leave that island alive. Back underground, Sarah took a breath. She sat in the chair. The lights pulsed red. Suddenly, the room shifted. Projectors activated, spinning images all around her. A young woman in a lab coat, laughing. A baby wrapped in a yellow blanket. Files. Equations. Burning papers. Screams. Fire. Her mother crying. Sarah, if you're seeing this, you survived. That means you're the last one who remembers what it means to feel. Sarah gasped as her memories raced back. Her childhood before the fire. Her mother whispering secrets at bedtime. The fear in her eyes when men in suits came for her. Jay stood by her, helpless, watching her eyes flicker like failing bulbs. And then, the screen went black. A single line appeared. Empathy overrides code. Release initiated. All over the island, the controlled subjects stopped moving. They blinked, looked around, began crying. One fell to his knees. Another whispered, where am I? In the city, power grids surged. Screens cracked. Data was wiped. The table's feeds collapsed into static. And for the first time in decades, the control broke. Jay ran to Sarah. She was shaking but smiling. You did it, he whispered. No, she said softly. My mother did. I just remembered who I am. But then, boom, the ceiling above exploded. Debris rained down. A team of armed men in black descended through the smoke, shouting orders. They weren't subjects. They were eliminators. Jay pulled Sarah behind a broken server stack. Her eyes locked onto him. We can't run forever. Jay nodded. Then we fight.